What would you do if the love of your life disappeared without a explanation, leaving you with nothing but memories and a promise that one day they would return? Would you wait a year, 10 years, or would you devote an entire lifetime to the hope that the day of reunion would come? This is the extraordinary true story of a Chinese woman named Mei Lin, who waited 50 long years for her husband who was lost during the war, a story of unshakable love, of patience beyond imagination, and of hope that refused to die. It begins in the 1940s in a small rural village in China, where life was simple. Families worked the land together, neighbors shared food and hardships, and traditions shaped the rhythm of daily existence. In that village, Mei Lin grew up as a gentle, kind young woman who always carried warmth in her eyes. She was admired for her loyalty to family and her soft heart. In her youth, she met Jian, a strong and brave young man from the same village. Jian had dreams beyond the rice fields. He spoke of building a better life, of protecting those he loved. And from the first time he saw Mei Lin, he knew she was the one he wanted to spend his life with. Their bond grew quickly, strengthened by the simple joys of shared laughter, whispered promises, and the certainty that their hearts were forever tied when they married. The entire village celebrated with drums, lanterns, and feasts. It seemed like the perfect love story, but history is often cruel, and the winds of war soon reached their quiet world. When Jian was called to serve as a soldier, everything changed. The morning he left, the sun rose over the mountains, casting light on a scene that would forever be burned into Mei Lin's memory. She held his hands tightly, tears streaming down her face, begging him to be safe. Jian looked into her eyes and promised, "I will come back. Wait for me, no matter how long." She nodded, her voice breaking as she replied, "I will wait. I promise." Those words, spoken in the trembling dawn, became their final exchange before he walked away into the horizon, his figure growing smaller with each step until he vanished from sight. That moment marked the beginning of a wait that would stretch across half a century. At first, life after his departure was filled with letters. Short messages written in haste, but filled with love and longing. Jian's handwriting was shaky, the paper worn, but each word carried strength. He told her to stay strong, to believe in him, and to hold on to their love. Those letters became her treasures. Carefully folded and hidden away, she would take them out at night, reading them again and again under the dim light of a lantern, drawing comfort from the thought that he was still alive. But as months passed, the letters became fewer, and eventually they stopped completely. Silence replaced the comfort of his words, and rumors began to spread. Some said he had been captured, some said he was dead, and others told her to move on. The world was harsh and practical. Young widows were encouraged to remarry, to build new families, to accept the loss and continue living. Her parents urged her, her friends pleaded with her, even strangers told her it was foolish to wait, but Mei Lin's heart was not moved. She told them all the same answer. "I made a promise, and I will keep it." Those words became her shield, her strength, and the reason she endured. As the years turned into decades, Mei Lin lived a life of waiting. Every morning she would walk to the road at the edge of the village, her eyes scanning the horizon for the familiar figure of her husband. Travelers passed, soldiers returned, but never Jian. Her heart broke again and again, yet she refused to give up. She became known as the woman who waited. While other women remarried and raised children, she remained loyal to her vow. She worked the fields, cared for her family, and helped neighbors, but every night she whispered his name before she went to sleep. Her loneliness was heavy, yet her love was heavier still. She carried it like an unshakable weight that anchored her soul. By her 30s, she had watched her friends become mothers, raising children who ran through the fields and filled the air with laughter. Mei Lin longed for such joy, but she could not betray her vow. Instead, she poured her love into her nieces and nephews, caring for them as if they were her own. She taught them lessons, sewed their clothes, told them stories, and guided them with wisdom, though she had no children of her own. She became a second mother. To many still, when the nights came and the silence filled her small home, her heart ached with emptiness. She would sit by the window, clutching Jian's photograph, whispering into the darkness, asking if he could hear her, if he still remembered, if he was still alive somewhere. those whispers faded into the night, unanswered but never abandoned. The decades brought enormous change to China: revolutions, new governments, political movements, and cultural upheavals. The world around Mei Lin shifted like waves in a storm. Traditions disappeared, villages modernized. And yet through all this she remained the same, holding on to her vow. She became an anchor of loyalty in a world of change. People began to respect her. Young couples sought her advice, asking how she could endure such endless waiting, and she always gave the same answer: when love is true, you do not measure time, you only believe. Her words became a kind of wisdom, and her life became a symbol, even as her hair turned white and her body grew weaker. Her spirit remained strong. The flame of her hope never went out. By the time she reached 60, the village no longer mocked her, they honored her. Children who once laughed now brought their own children to meet her. They said, "This is Aunt Mei Lin, the woman who waited. She is proof that true love exists." People brought her food, repaired her roof, and treated her with deep respect. She had become more than just a woman. She was a legend in her own lifetime, a living reminder of what loyalty meant. But even as others admired her, she still carried doubt in her heart. There were nights when tears stained her pillow, when she asked herself if she had wasted her youth, if Jian was really gone, if all her waiting was in vain. But in her darkest moments, she always returned to the memory of his promise, and it gave her strength to keep going. Tomorrow, she told herself. Maybe tomorrow. Then, after half a century of waiting, the miracle happened. Mei Lin was in her 70s. Her body frail, her hands shaking with age, but her eyes still shining with the same hope of the young bride she once was. And one day news spread through the village. A group of veterans had returned to the region, old men who had been missing, captured, or stranded for decades. Among them was a name that shook her entire being: Jian. She could hardly believe it, after 50 years of silence. Could it be true? She walked with trembling legs to the gathering, her heart pounding as if it might burst. And then she saw him, his hair white, his face lined with wrinkles, his body bent with age. But his eyes were the same. The moment they met hers, 50 years of waiting vanished. Time itself seemed to stop. She began to cry, her whole body shaking, and Jian too could not hold back his tears. For a long moment they simply stood, looking at one another, as if no time had passed. Then they embraced, and the crowd around them, villagers, friends, strangers, all wept with them, witnessing a reunion that was nothing short of miraculous. Jian told his story, how he had been captured during the war, moved from one place to another, held in harsh conditions. Deprived of freedom, unable to send word, he had survived by holding on to her memory. He said that in the darkest nights, when he thought he could not endure, he saw her face in his mind, and it gave him strength. He too had never remarried, never allowed another to take her place, because in his heart there was only one woman, Mei Lin, the love of his life. And now, after half a century, fate had brought them back together. Their love had outlived war, distance, and time itself. Their reunion was not only personal joy, but a lesson for everyone who saw it. Villagers who once told her to move on now bowed in respect. Younger generations learned that love is not only about happiness, but also about patience, sacrifice, and faith. Mei Lin and Jian spent their final years side by side, walking slowly through the village, eating together, laughing, and enjoying the peace of being united. Every day was a gift. Because they knew the value of time lost and the miracle of time regained, they would sit outside in the evenings, hand in hand, watching the sunset, not needing words, for their silence spoke of 50 years of love, pain, and hope, though their bodies were frail. Their love was still strong, still alive, and still unshakable when Mei Lin finally passed away. Jian held her hand until her last breath, whispering the same words he had spoken as a young man: "Wait for me, I will follow." And true to his promise, he joined her not long after. Their graves lie side by side, visited by generations who tell their story. The story of the woman who waited 50 years and the man who returned, a story now remembered as one of the greatest examples of loyalty and love in Chinese history. And so their love lives on, not only in memory, but in the lessons it teaches. That true love is not measured in time but in devotion. That hope can survive even when the world says it is impossible. And that a promise made from the heart can outlast war, suffering, and even death. Their story reminds us that love, in its purest form, never dies. It may be tested, it may be delayed, it may be separated by oceans of time, but it endures. And if this story touched your heart and reminded you of the meaning of love, subscribe now, because more real stories that inspire the soul are coming. Share this story with those you care about, because love like this deserves to be remembered forever.